for being here. What a crazy meeting we have. Sue Shank, would you pop up real quick, please? You want to make an announcement? I have 100 announcements to make, and we'll make times are yours. Okay, a bunch of things. The next Washtenaw Alliance potluck is next Sunday in, not this space, but just down the hall, but here in this building. We're addressing Christian nationalism, the threat of Christian nationalism to our country. So, and looking at personal challenges around Christian nationalism. My brother and sister-in-law are Christian nationalists, so I can speak with authority to that. So come, it's next Sunday here down the hall, 5 to 8 p.m. What else are we doing? Definitely the next monthly meeting is December 6th in our usual space, the LRC, the Learning Resource Center. And then on December 7th, mark your calendars. I was supposed to have a QR code, but couldn't get it in time. Our annual dinner at IBEW Hall from 5 to 8 or 7 to 5 to 8 p.m. Also, we have Congresswoman Dingell, of course. We have MDP Chair Curtis Hertel, and Debbie's doing her best to get Jamie Raskin as our featured speaker. So we'll know Monday if we have Jamie Raskin as our featured speaker, but that's already on our landing page. And in a minute, there'll be a sign-up link, so get your tickets fast because those will sell out.
How much are the tickets?
$150 to start. But we are soliciting donations to support certainly students and others who have trouble making that. And we have a discount for veterans. So that's where we're starting. And anyway, that's I'm going to say about that for now. I was talking with Kathy Wyatt and others about the experiences we've had with intimidation at the polls. This is not going to slow down. This is going to get way, way worse. And a way to to avoid that is to join the permanent absent voter list, PAV. That's what's up there, right there. You can find out everything you need to know to vote at mivoter.org. All right, mivoter.org. Put in your street address and you find everybody who represents you and how to contact them. Come endorsement time, you find all the endorsements that we put out and other clubs around the state. We developed it, it's now statewide. So yay for the WCDP volunteer team. And at the bottom of every screen, it's how to vote. And click on that and you'll find everything you need to know about registering, about when the dates are, about how to get on the permanent absent voter list and so forth. So bookmark it now, mivoter.org. Sue, quick.
Hi, State Senator Sue Shank, working hard for you. On the 6th of November, I've got a town hall at Riverwood Library. There are more flyers out on the table. It starts at 6:30. I would love it if you came. It's nice to see friendly faces. And also, if you haven't followed me on Facebook, please do. Thanks.
That was quick. Stay up here though. Is Annie Somerville on the line? Is Annie Somerville in the room? Because we wanted Annie to talk about, okay, Sue, you're now our Lansing rep. Our representative, everything that's going on in Lansing. Okay. So can you tell us about, first of all, the 9 bills?
Yeah.
And then also, what are we doing about the perfidy of the federal government during the shutdown? I do want everybody to know food gatherers. All right. We have a table out here for canned goods. Go to their site. 95% of what they collect is spent on people. No, like practically no overhead. Food gatherers, send them cash. Okay, here.
So what we did in the budget to counteract what's going on in the federal government is that we actually were able to blunt the cuts to Medicaid by decoupling our corporate income tax structure and the way we tax medical providers so that Medicaid in Michigan is largely intact. There were a few other things that are smaller, but that is the biggest one because without Medicaid, all of us would be facing a shortage of medical services. So anyone who thinks Medicaid has nothing to do with them, You're wrong. Medicaid has everything to do with all of us because it's also intertwined. We need everybody to have health care for ourselves to get health care. I realize that's grammatically incorrect. Dana Nessel is a rock star. She is fighting the Trump administration as they break the law. And she filed a lawsuit along with other AGs. I'm just going to say this. We know that the governor was reticent to join that lawsuit. She did. They won. Yay. So I don't know whether the Trump administration will do what they're told, but they've been told to release the SNAP funding. Before that happened, the governor released $4.5 million to food banks. Keep in mind, please, that people with SNAP cards don't have to go to food banks. They get to go to the grocery store, just like the rest of us. And if you also, everybody who's on SNAP is helping to keep our food system going. So anyone who thinks that SNAP doesn't have anything to do with them, again, wrong. SNAP has everything to do with all of us having access to food. But the Democrats in the Senate, no, that's not true. We proposed, but the entire Senate voted for a bill to release about $70 million, $50 million of which would allow people to access food without standing in a line. And I love the food banks, and it's really important. And there's nothing wrong with there's everything good with going to a food bank. But not everybody's going to do that. And it's important to make sure that people are able to access food in a way that works for them. And so our bill of $70 million allowed food to go to places where people were already accessing food, whether it was a grocery store or a food bank, not a food bank, a pantry in a place that they know and trust. And the House Speaker has said all sorts of terrible things about it and that he won't pass it. But it is sitting there. And if things start to get bad, we believe he will feel the pressure from his caucus to pass it because all the Democrats and all the Republicans in the Senate passed it because it's a good bill. So there's lots of fighting going on, but we're trying to do the right thing and we're trying to do it in a way that's thoughtful and sustainable and careful. But the bottom line is the federal government needs to do its job. The Trump administration and the Republicans in Congress are blaming the Democrats for the shutdown. But the reality is that all they need to do is not cut everybody's health care, and then the Democrats will come along. So they're not even standing up for all the against all the terrible things the Trump administration is doing. They're really just standing up for us so that we have access to health care. So I think that's probably a good summary.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks. Don't go in there. No. First of all, isn't it, so cuts to Medicaid, cuts to SNAP are also hurting the grocery stores that rely on those dollars. And the farmers, right. So, and the sick justification for Republicans is that, well, this will put pressure on the Democrats. Hurting their constituents will put pressure on the Democrats, right?
Yes, but everybody should know that more people in conservative districts use these services than in Democratic areas. Democratic areas are the financial powerhouse of our country, hands down. So we're the ones who are powering this place, but it's messed up.
There you have it. State Senator Suchinski, it's messed up. Okay, hang on. Katie Scott, I just wanted to stay here in case people have questions.
Sure.
Is that Jeff?
Yeah.
Hey, come on up. State Senator Jeff Irwin. If you have any other words to say, we only have a few minutes left because we have such a crazy meeting. And I also want to, thank you. Thank you to both of our state senators. They're making millions of dollars in these jobs. I'm sure you're aware of that. They make so much money. Not. So do you want to say a word about what's going on in Lansing too? And I want to bring up Katie Scott, who's on.
I'll just say something very briefly. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for having me. Good news, nobody's over at the LLRC that I could find. So I'm a little bit late, sorry about that. But I'm sure that Senator Shin covered it more than adequately, but I feel the obligation to say that I really feel like Democrats need to step up at this moment, particularly around food stamps and health insurance. I think that I want to give some credit to our federal members in the Senate who have said, this issue of exploding health insurance premiums is important and we're going to put our foot down. And, I also think that what was important for us to do is to dig deep on this food stamp thing. And Lansing, a lot of us were pushing for the state to float the dollars so that people who are outing food assistance would at least have, maybe a month of relief. What we ended up passing on the Senate, as I'm sure Sue described, was about a quarter of that, $70 million. It's a good thing. I'm glad we did it, but I feel an obligation to say that it wasn't enough. It was not enough. The state of Michigan has the resources. We've got a $2 billion rainy day fund. We could have gone after the feds to try to get that money paid back, but even if they didn't pay it back, what Democrats need to do is do the right thing, right? When there's a question, when there's chaos, let's find out, what do we care about? We care about feeding hungry people, and let's do that. And so I'm glad we did that, but I wish we could have done more. And I've been very, very disappointed with the approach of our state executive, who, has said, we can solve this by putting money into our food banks. Our food banks are completely overlooked. They don't have the storage, they don't have the space, they don't have the staff. And we should have the moral fortitude to say, we're not going to send 1.4 million people to the bread lines that are going to be overloaded and do not have the capacity or the space to handle this. We've got a whole system for SNAP. And even though it's a symptom of our broken economy, we need to continue that in the interim. So I'm hopeful that logjam can break in DC. There's no reason that the logjam can't break, except that the Republicans don't want it to. They have the votes, they control everything. So I'm glad that them are trying to stick up for people's health insurance and try to get that done in this process. But I think that in state, we all as Democrats need to always dig deep for folks who are struggling, because that is what we're about.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. I wanna mention that, just for a sec. I was talking with Sam earlier about, Heather Cox Richardson's, letters from an American this morning. It's so good. She starts with a question from a reporter to a Democratic rep I'd never heard of before. Which is like, well, if the president doesn't release the SNAP funds, are you guys going to stand down? And the rep said, let's talk about how you're framing that question. Why is it always Democrats who are supposed to save Republicans? We need to flip that, and you need to ask Republicans this. It was fantastic. It really braced me. Sometimes I don't want to read Heather Cox Richardson in the morning because it's so, just so depressing. But this morning, it really stiffened my spine and gave me hope. So if you don't look at letters from an American, go for it, because it was really, really good. All right, Katie.
Hi. Thanks for letting me be online. I have the crud and at least my voice. Can you hear me okay?
We can. We're glad you're here. If you don't know, Katie Scott is the chair of the County Board of Commissioners.
Hi. Yesterday, my voice sounded so bad. I sounded like RFK, so I couldn't talk to anybody because it was damaging my credibility. So today, at least, I sound a little bit better. But Teresa just asked me to come and talk a little bit about what we're doing about SNAP at the county, because, of course, we're like boots on the ground and worried about what's going to happen. And so, I mean, I'm hoping that we have a reprieve, but I also like that we're developing a playbook, so to speak. Bye, Jeff. Bye, Sue. We're developing a playbook for what to do if things like this continue to happen. Because I think that this is the new, unfortunately, this will be the new normal. So I want to think about what we're doing as a county so we can zip into action more quickly, because everybody, government is not necessarily known for zipping into action super quickly. But I think that we need to be more nimble to address this moral turpitude that's coming out of Washington, D.C. So we've been working with food gatherers to do some of those emergency drive-through sites that we have set up there. They'll be at Briarwood, Saturday, November 8th, Wednesday, November 12th, Saturday, November 15th, and Wednesday, November 19th from 9:30 to 11:30. We also have on our agenda coming up to provide some additional funding for the skip funding for senior food, and also giving money to the Meals on Wheels program. So about 100,000 each for those programs to see us through for at least maybe the next 2 weeks to a month, with some plans for how we can continue to get funds into places like food gatherers, because of course the food bank, I think sometimes people don't always understand too, the food bank provides the food pantries. And so giving that money to food gatherers really helps then get those out to the to those pantries. So I'm also trying to think about how we can do different creative things, like thinking about, is it feasible to talk about giving gift cards to grocery stores if this continues to go on? Part of the issue is figuring out how you get those gift cards and how you get them out to different places in the county, and then the very places. Like first we we're like, let's do gift cards to Kroger, but there's no Kroger in Manchester. And there are people who get SNAP benefits in this part of the county. So how can we make sure that we're making sure everybody who needs these benefits are going to get them? But the first start was for us to talk about working with food gatherers to get these distribution sites going, getting money out to Skip, and getting money out for the Meals on Wheels and congregate food settings for seniors. And we're like, it's like I'm thinking about it all. Like yesterday, even when I sounded like RFK, I was trying to think about all the different ways we could do this, working with Eileen to try to talk about the best practices, because food gatherers knows what they're doing. And so we're thinking about it and trying to act on it all the time. And good news is that WIC also, let me say this, WIC will go through the 24th of this month, even with a shutdown. And I know that that's very much a priority for some of us on the board. WIC was just recognized for their excellence. And Commissioner Beeman and I were talking about like how important we felt like having that support for moms were. So I think there's really good people on the board. So I'm descending into RFK territory with my voice now. I've been talking so long, but there's really good people on the board who are trying to do this work. And I'm gonna stop talking, but you can ask me questions. I'm not too RFK'd out.
Thanks, Katie. Actually, we can't ask questions because we're out of time because we have
Okay,
a crazy
great.
meeting. Thank you, thank you. And I want to point out, we have an all Democratic County Board of Commissioners. We have our folks from Washtenaw are all Democratic in the state legislature, and that's us. That's us. So yes, thank you, Susan. Thank you, thank you. We should be proud of the work that they're doing, that we have elected them to do, and thank them for their service, because really it's usually thankless. All right, here we go. Eli Nathans.
Thank you very much. The next part of this program is going to be a presentation on the village to be voted on this week for the career and technical education. And to speak in favor of the village here is Naomi Norman, who is the superintendent of the Washtenaw Intermediate School District, and Ryan Rowe, who is, I guess, a specialist for this particular part of their responsibilities. So they have 7 minutes, and then we're going to hear from Kathy Griswold, who's representing an organization that is opposing the village. So you got both sides, and I hope there's also a chance for a question.
All right, thank you very much. We're happy to be here. I just want to start by saying I've been in this role for 5 years as a superintendent, and in the very beginning, one of the most deeply inequitable aspects of the education system in our county is access to career technical education and the skills and the credentials that come with it. So it's been a priority to focus on this, and I want to turn this over to Ryan to talk a bit more about the specifics of what we've been doing.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for having us and allowing us a few minutes to speak. Ultimately, it's the goal to have every graduate in Washtenaw County to approach the stage at their high school graduation with an inspired and informed post-secondary plan. Hopefully, as they approach that stage with that plan, it has been based on experiences that they've had through pre-K through 12th grade. Things that have affirmed that they want to be working in healthcare, or further studying in healthcare, or advanced manufacturing, or all of the other areas that we need skilled employees. You may know CT if you're my age as vocational education, which included building trades and healthcare and advanced manufacturing and welding. It's that and so much more today. Engineering, aviation, aerospace, education, all of the areas that we so desperately need skilled employees. Our students, 86% of our students who are enrolled in CTE programs approach that stage and say, I want to go on to post-secondary certification, license degrees, associate's degree, bachelor's degree, in part because they've affirmed through their experiences pre-K through 12th grade, this is what I want to do, or potentially what I don't want to do before I go off and bury myself in debt before they graduate. Go ahead. Coming out of COVID accentuated an already existing problem, which was We had 75, 70-year-olds that were retiring. COVID hit, we had 50 to 55-year-olds retiring, and every sector of our society took a hit with workforce. Education, healthcare, advanced manufacturing, transportation. And so we saw students making more informed choices coming out of COVID. Our enrollment in our career technical education classes has grown 69% in 4 years. They are demanding and asking for us to provide these opportunities. We've always operated in 4 silos: Ann Arbor on their own, Ipsy on their own, Whitmore Lake on their own, and then the Southwest Washtenaw Consortium. Where you reside is where you can attend. If you want to be a welder or a welding engineer and you attend Ann Arbor Ipsy schools, you do not have access at this point in time. We're trying to open those doors and accomplish that. All of our students thank you, perfect. All of our students in Washtenaw County have less opportunity than their counterparts throughout the state. Northville, Oakland, Ottawa. Students there have access to about 30 unique CTE programs. Our students, even in the consortium, only have access to 21. If you reside in Ann Arbor, you have access to 13. If you reside in Ypsilanti, it's 5, and Whitmore, 4. All of our students have lack access, but if you're a student of color, a student in a smaller enrollment size district, and if you're economically disadvantaged, you're tremendously at a disadvantage to access these world-class programs. Just to put this in another illustration, here's our current programs. The green are the programs that are accessed by students at Chelsea, Dexter, Lincoln, Manchester, Highland, Sling, and Southwest Washtenaw Consortium. Whitmore Lake on the far right side, where you see the Zoom, Ann Arbor and Ypsilanti. If we were to move that, you don't have to, they're all in. They don't have those. So you could see who has access and who does not. And next slide would be fine. So we're looking for a sustainable funding model. We have expanded access. We're one of about 12 counties in the state of Michigan that does not have a dedicated CTE millage fund. And therefore, the state provided for 3 years an opportunity through grant funds to expand access to CTE programs and to update equipment with 61C1 grant. So in 21-22, we received about $500,000. The next year, about $500,000. The next year, 1.153. And then they said it's time to call the question. So when people ask why now, that was our funding to update and provide opportunities for students. We knew that was coming to an end. And we've been working with the U of M Youth Policy Lab since 2019 to expose the inequities that exist in Washtenaw County. And we're doing so through grant funds strategically that are now coming to an end. Now it's time for this community to make a decision, one way or the other, whether we want to sustain our current programs that exist, 1, and 2, expand opportunities throughout the entire county, but specifically for students that do not have access to these programs. We often think about these being 11th and 12th grade programs, but we are starting at pre-K through 12th grade. So yesterday, I was at an economic luncheon by Ann Arbor Ipsy Chamber talking about the opportunities that exist in Washtenaw County. 3 things are non-negotiable. Have to start much earlier, have to expand access, have to involve the parents on what is possible for our kids. Our kids can be whatever they want to be. We need every single student across that stage of graduation to say, I can contribute to society in this way. We're not providing that exposure at this point in time. So examples, if you go back to the previous slide real quick. Pre-K through 12th through 5th grade. So first, robotics. This is all about awareness. What exists, what's possible for pre-K through 5th grade. High scope curriculums at pre-K, it's a lot about creative play. Students understanding themselves, self-actualization. I like helping other people. I like working outside. I like working with my hands. That goes into exploration, which is 6th and 10th grade. When you think about the school year, but what about summers and after school opportunities, our clubs and organizations that can also have an influence on students and what they might want to be when they grow up and contribute. And then certainly our 11th and 12th grade students exploring through state group CT programs. So prior to 1994, counties could ask for a CTE millage for as much as they wanted, for as long as they wanted. So if they're in Lenawee County or Jackson County, Lenawee County has 2.9 mils. They asked it's in perpetuity, it's forever. It was prior to 1994. After 1994, you can ask for up to 1 mil. We're going for 10 years is on the ballot, and then we go back to the voters for renewal. All of the information is on the ISD website, including how much it would cost to property owners. We'd like to provide, for instance, a $400,000 home, $200,000 taxable value would be 54 cents per day or $16 approximately per month. But again, this is all on the website for anyone to access so that they can look at their specific circumstance and scenario. And that's what I have.
Thank you. We just made it to 7 minutes.
Okay, perfect.
Yay.
So I'm gonna let Kathy Krystle speak, and then there'll be a chance for questions from the end.
Thank you very much. My name is Kathy Krystle. I am a product of career tech education. I also served on the Ann Arbor School Board, advocated for the bond that built Skyline High School. I also served on City Council from 2018 to 2022. What you've heard today is a great program. The problem is this the time that we should be raising property taxes, which is a regressive tax? Regressive means that the lower income people pay a larger percentage of their income than wealthier people. I want to just give you 3 reasons why not to support this and then talk about it generally. The first one is that this is a new property tax increase. It is 1 mil, a total of $250 million over 10 years. That is a huge wealth transfer from hardworking families to an organization, the WISD. Number 2, we talk about affordability. Today, we talked about, as good Dems, and we should be, we talked about providing food for people with food insecurity. The flip side of that is we are going to tax those same people disproportionately when they cannot even afford food. We need a better solution. Number 3, the uncertainty in this country. I don't have to tell anyone how we are in a crisis in this country. We don't know what's going to happen in the next week. We are bombing ships for some reason, but I don't know what. We need to step back and look at what's truly necessary at this point. Again, I said I'm a product of career tech education. I started in high school taking drafting in the late 60s. I was in E-Wing at Pioneer High School. I was the only female who took drafting back then. It provided critical thinking. It was very important to my life. I went on to get an MBA from the University of Michigan with a specialty in information systems. I truly support career tech. However, now is not the time. Lastly, I have a real problem with the WISD spending over $1 million of our money, of taxpayer dollars, for this campaign. Everything that you've seen, the nice PowerPoint presentation, all of the mailers, all of the yard signs and banners that are at the schools, they were paid for with our dollars. Why? Because that's allowed as long as you don't say vote yes. So we have an off-year, low voter turnout election paid for by us to pass a regressive tax that is going to harm the people who we think make up the core of the Democratic Party. And it seems like the same Democratic elitism that we're reading about, and it's driving people out of the Democratic Party.
Lastly, I'll just say that I've been working with many Democrats and many people who feel like they're without a party. They feel abandoned by the Democratic Party. How can we get them back? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kathy. I'd like to open the floor up to questions from the audience. Should there be any? Teresa, right behind you, Jim. Just turn around.
Well, I'm curious, is this on?
Yeah, okay. So I'd like to hear from WSD about Kathy's argument about the regressive nature of the tax.
I guess I want to start by saying my experience in working with our community and our families are saying our kids need to have a sense of direction post high school. They're saying we want an opportunity to try out these different careers and earn the credentials while we're in high school so we can work when we leave high school, so we can work while we're in college. And I actually think that this is going to serve the broad area of our county. It's going to serve all families. Right now, kids who are poor, kids of color, and kids in these small high schools do not have access. And they want access. They're asking for it. We have waiting lists. We have talked to the students. We've talked to their families, and we know that this is really important. So I know that there's a need throughout every economic range in this county. And it is, if you have a more expensive home, you are going to pay more. If you have a lower expensive home, less costly home, you're going to pay less. I'm not understanding how that's regressive personally, but I just want to say that is our community, our students and families are asking for this, and they're saying they really want it. And I just want to address this point about where we are in the world right now. We have the power in this county to make a decision that will shape tremendously the lives of the kids and the future of this community. That's what I feel is at stake right now. And it is going to help us with the economic development as we move forward. So it is a whole community proposition.
Thank you. We have time for one more question, but Kathy gets 30 seconds to.
A regressive tax refers to the percentage of your income that you are spending on taxes. And so low income people are going to be spending a higher percentage of their income because they spend a higher percentage on housing, rent, or owning property. And so that is what is more harmful to lower income individuals.
Thank you very much. One question.
Jamie, and I'm a resident of Ann Arbor. My question for Ms. Rowe is setting aside the benefits to the individual students, which I think we can all agree there are. Can you speak a little bit about the financial ROI to the county? You know, how much do we get back for every dollar we invest in CTE?
Yeah, so I think throughout the state, it's for every dollar we put in, $5 comes back to the community based on our investment in technical education. And it comes through students who want to earn a certification license or credential while they're in high school. So they're CNA and go off to Michigan Medicine or Trinity Health. They want to earn a welding certificate, go to Weaver Aerospace. They go on to a 2-year degree or they go on to a 4-year degree. And I think our post-secondary institutions will also have a return on investment in that our students are more informed to make that decision as they cross the stage of graduation. Last thing I'll say, thank you for the question. Last thing I will say is, one of our students at Ypsilanti said, if we invest in this now, we will be the generation of hope. I mean, this is powerful stuff that our students are asking for.
Okay, that's the last question. I want to move now to the ranked choice voting panel. We could spend 20 more minutes on this subject, but we have a lot to cover today. So Lyndon Dibble is going to be the moderator. I'm going to call to the front, tax of bylaw. And Larry Kessenbeck will speak probably on ranked choice voting.
We're coming. Perfect.
So Michigan has a ballot proposal. That's collecting signatures right now, a petition to amend our constitution. In a very dramatic way. He has it right here, naturally. This would introduce ranked choice voting to Michigan, completely upend our current election system, and change it. And I have two great speakers here. We have Pat, who's the executive director and founder, I'm pretty sure, right, as a founder?
I joined in its founding year, but not.
Okay.
Not for the founding founder.
Not a founder, but the executive director, Rank My Vote, the organization behind the petition. And Larry here, who is the Washtenaw County clerk. Right? Okay, good. Well, that would have been bad, guys. And just to do a quick introduction to ranked choice voting, for those of you who are unfamiliar with how it operates, I do have a short, very short video that I'd like to show from Rank My Vote that shows the basic premise of RCV in a very accessible way, which I find very informative.
Show first.
Can you show first?
Well, just my shirt.
Oh, sure.
We're just gonna show the tabulation process, but I want to show ranked choice voting. Right now you get.
Please use the microphone.
Oh, I'm so sorry, thank you. Right now, you get a selection of one candidate in most races. There are races where you select multiple candidates. But in most races, you get a selection of one candidate. In ranked choice voting, it's like the back of my shirt. You also get second choice and third choice of candidate, and so on. As you prefer, you can express your preferences as a voter. The winning candidate must receive 50% or more voter support. If there's not enough, if first rankings, there's not 50% or more support for a candidate from first rankings, the candidate with the fewest first rankings is eliminated. Second rankings taken into account for the voters who voted for that candidate, and so on until a candidate with 50% or more voter support. So I think, Lyndon, that's what you're about to demo in terms of
Which exactly
a stack of Legos that
Yeah.
shows those preferences, voters' preferences in a stack of Legos.
Exactly. So the process sounds very complex, tabulation, all these fancy words, but in practice, it's very simple to understand. And I just want to make sure everyone understands it before we go into the nitty bitty details of the petition language.
And here,
Perfect. Okay. Let's go to the next. Unless you're back to the make sure you keep track. I have to look at that. Look at everybody. We see right off the bat, has the least amount. You get eliminated, but whoever voted for them, they're both makes a choice. You spot it, right? Yeah. People.
Perfect. So I hope everyone understood that. I think that is actually very informative. And now I'll hand it over, I think, to Pat to go into the details of ranked choice voting. Perfect. We'll go into the details of ranked choice voting. Or
Yeah. I think I can do either. I'm gonna stand at the
so
podium.
Pat, you'll have 10 minutes to present your side of the argument of why we should.
Back up. Yep, sounds good. Say it again then.
You'll have 10 minutes for your side of ranked choice voting.
Ooh, sounds good. Hello, everyone. Oh, I gotta speak on the mic. All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Pat Zabawa. About me first. I'm the executive director of Rank My Vote. I'm a volunteer for Rank My Vote. And I moved to Ann Arbor. I grew up in Michigan in Metro Detroit. Came here to go to U of M in 2005. So just telling you that 20 years ago, for undergrad, I moved away a little bit, but my heart was here, so I moved back. And I'm so excited to be here and speaking for you all. I go around the state, I live in Ann Arbor, I go around the state talking about ranchers because we are running a signature campaign. And I like to begin a lot of our talks saying, who of you are frustrated or angry about the status of our politics, about political outcomes? Surveys show, right, when surveys poll people, 90% of Americans are exhausted, angry about politics. And the temperature of our politics is really high. I increasingly talk to people and find that they're not talking to their families anymore because they and their families are their political views have just torn them apart. They're so oppositional to each other. They feel like they're no longer family or neighbors, but working against each other. When going around the state, talk to people within the party. People within the party won't talk to each other anymore because they feel like they're working at odds. And in this environment, lots of voters, young voters, are saying, wait a minute, why am I getting involved in this world where the world is so negative, where I'm being opposed for expressing my view? I don't want to participate in politics when it's so negative like this. And this is something that we can do, that we can improve on, through ranked choice voting. Ranked choice voting, a simple and proven way here in the US that we can improve voter voice and voter choice. And our petition here is to bring it to Michigan. I'll explain ranked choice voting again, just so everyone understands. Again, in the ballot right now, you get a single choice of candidate to vote for. In a ranked choice voting election, you also get to express on the ballot your second choice and third choice, and so on, as you prefer as a voter. What does that do? That means voters have more choice and more power. Right now, you may be torn as a voter between voting for a less popular candidate. You're torn about wasting, you might feel like you're wasting your vote and vote for that candidate. You have to vote for a more popular candidate. You have to vote for a lesser two evils. You have to strategically vote. Ranked choice voting allows you to express your preferences as you truly believe them. You can vote for a candidate without worrying about their popularity. Rank them first, rank your second favorite second, and so on, and express your true preference. This also means that candidates must reach out for your second and third rankings. That means candidates must reach out to their opponents' voters and talk about why they are similar to you, why they have your values, not why you are wrong, why their opponents are wrong. Flips the incentive from negative campaigning to one of positive campaigning, voter outreach. Instead of the way that campaigns run, talk to political strategists, they admit that negative campaign ads decrease voter turnout. They just hope that they decrease their opponents' turnout more than they decrease their own voters' turnout. Ranked choice voting flips that incentive, creates a reward structure that attracts voters, pulls voters in, increases turnout, and we see examples of that. I'll go into where ranked choice voting is used later, but we saw it this summer in the New York City mayoral election, where the winning candidate cross-endorsed with other candidates. They appeared in ads together, pulled voters in, 30-year turnout high. Along those lines, what's ranked choice voting mean? It means candidates can come forward without worrying about being a spoiler. Right now, voters are punished when there's more than two candidates in a race. If there's more than two candidates in a race, the overwhelming majority of voter support could be split between candidates. So a candidate who does not represent the majority of voters, a candidate who the majority of voters oppose, can win a race if there's more than two candidates in a race. Ranked choice voting splits that. Make sure that voters are not punished when there's more than two candidates in a race. And that means more candidates can come forward, and we see that. We see that more women, people of color, LGBTQ candidates run and win under ranked choice voting because they can come forward and run without being a spoiler. Ranked choice voting, as I said, is simple and proven around the country. It's been used in municipal elections for over 100 years. It's used in Maine and Alaska statewide, or its statewide elections. New York City, which I just mentioned, elected to use ranked choice voting. Voters voted on it in 2019 and 2021. It was first used for mayoral and city council elections in the primary there. And New York City saw 30-year record turnout highs, which just increased in the primary election this year. Speaking of primary elections, parties use a modified ranked choice voting process in their convention nomination process because they know that voters are punished when there's more than 2 candidates. And ranked choice voting is a way to resolve the plurality system of winning, whether you get single choice. Under ranked choice voting, you're ensured, as I said, that the winner receives more than 50% of voter support. So in party conventions, the parties use a modified ranked choice voting process to make sure that rankings are taken into account and the winner of a nomination receives 50% or more of voter support. And what's good for parties in the convention is good for parties in the primary, and it's good for voters in the general election to make sure that voters are represented in the outcome of their election. Maine and Alaska use ranked choice voting statewide, as I mentioned. New York City's chosen to use ranked choice voting, the fastest growing nonpartisan reform in the U.S. Here in Michigan, ranked choice voting was used in the mayoral elections in Ann Arbor in 1975, actually, when a similar issue was coming up in terms of a large portion of the population was expressing their vote outside of the 2 main parties and got together, put ranked choice voting on the ballot. Ann Arbor then elected its first Black mayor in 1975. And the majority of Ann Arborites were represented with an outcome that resulted in not vote splitting in an unrepresented outcome, but a representative outcome that made sure that they were represented, but majority of them were represented in that outcome. Ann Arbor then elected to use ranked choice voting. We voted for ranked choice voting overwhelmingly by 75.3% here. I could say we, because I live in Ann Arbor in 2021. East Lansing, Kalamazoo, and Royal Oak elected to use ranked choice voting in 2023. In the state of Michigan, though, under current election statute, the interpretation by the Bureau of Elections is that ranked choice voting cannot be used due to ballot design statute. And so that is one of many things that we are running in our petition. So our petition is to put ranked choice voting on the November of 2026 ballot. My mouth is drying up. Glass of water. I just forgot to bring one up. Thank you so very much. Our petition is to put ranked choice voting for major statewide and federal offices and their primaries on the November 2026 ballot, because that is a great way that we can resolve all of these issues that we are talking about, right? Voters being frustrated by their lack of choice, their lack of expression, the negativity that we see in our campaigns, even within primaries. Like we see voters turning against each other, as I mentioned at the beginning. So we are bringing this petition forward to resolve those two. One second. To join the 73% of Ann Arborites, to join East Lansing, Kalamazoo, and Royal Oak, Maine, Alaska, New York City, 50 cities around the nation, and say, we want to express our preferences, our true preferences, without the spoiler problem, with candidates coming forward, without the negative campaign, lowering the temperature of our politics, reducing the temperature of our politics where we see we're at the precipice of political violence. We want to bring ranked choice voting forward, join those Americans who have chosen and seen the future of voter expression through ranked choice voting, and put ranked choice voting on the November 2026 ballot. I want to mention, lastly, in terms of those voters who do use ranked choice voting overwhelmingly find it simple and easy to use. Over 90% cross demographic groups. We rank things every day. I like to say we intuitively, in say a competitive election like the presidential primary, to the sense of these are the candidates that compel me forward.
Yes, there is.
These are the candidates I want to express my preferences for. I don't want to have to figure out what is the one candidate who I should choose without wasting my vote. Voters understand, like, find simple, and love expressing their preferences through ranked choice voting. We're excited to bring this to Michigan, and we ask you to sign our petition and support our voter center campaign. I think that's it. Thanks so much. Everybody hand it to Larry now?
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. It's my honor to speak for you all, and my honor to be with you, Larry.
All right. Now, I'm here, I'm the bad guy, I'm the anti-side here, but I should clarify, it'll make clear in what I'm talking about, that I'm not opposed to ranked choice voting as such, but I'm very skeptical of using it in Michigan in general elections, and I will tell you what. I was told originally I had 15 minutes, so I wrote a 15-minute little speech, but now I'm gonna have to do it in 10 minutes. So, but let me start by saying that when we talk about the frustration and the difficulty and the hostility and the violence in politics, we all know what the cause of that is. By and large, it's Fox News.
That's
Fox
right.
News has poisoned so many people's minds and gotten them into this, this sort of absurd tribalism of being a MAGA. And our voting system is not going to solve that. But the discussions about voting systems can get very heated. And we're talking about people in this room who are very plugged in, who know about all the different terms and so forth. But out in the world, people are not as interested or as cognizant of all the different choices. There are many competing ideas of how to do a voting system, even different ranked choice options. It's been mathematically proven that given a list of kind of sensible criteria, there is no perfect voting system. All of them fail in some way. Either fail to provide a majority, allow what a candidate to split the vote, or whatever the issue is, and that includes ranked choice, or at least the IRV really is what we're talking about here. Ranked choice is a broad category of a lot of different systems. What's being proposed here is what we call the IRV.
What is IRV?
IRV, instant runoff voting. Okay, and that's now the system that we have now is plurality voting. Which basically means whoever gets the most votes wins, regardless of how few that is of the total. And as some of you know, I used to advocate for IRV for Ann Arbor city elections, and you can find online, you can probably find YouTube videos of me speaking about it and arguing for it. But I've changed my mind somewhat. I now mostly support approval voting instead, which is a different system that I'll get to. But I'm going to talk about the practicalities of elections. This is kind of deep in the weeds, but I live in the weeds. I'm the chief election official for the county, and I've got to deal with all these details all the time. So I'm going to then I'm going to talk about the pros and cons of the Rank My Vote amendment. Touch on the pros and cons of approval voting. I'm going to finish up with a few considerations about elections and partisanship. We ask a lot of our voters in Michigan. If you're in the city of Ann Arbor, your personal vote elects 96 different officials. In Scioto Township, where I live, it's actually 100. You think about going down the ballot, all the different offices down, the U of M Board of Regents and the Wayne State Board of Governors and the Community College Board and the Library Board, and the School Board, the county offices, etc. Especially among people who cast ballots in person on election day, which I would encourage you not to do. Voting by absentee ballot is qualitatively better. It gives you a take-home exam.
right?
And it's because Democrats are more likely to vote by absentee ballot. That's why Democrats control the Michigan Supreme Court, because we have this crazy system of candidates nominated by party and then running nonpartisan on the ballot. So you want to vote for your party's candidates, you have to know where they are. So now, ever since COVID, we have the situation where Democrats are the ones, at home, looking up the right answer, and Republicans are the ones standing in the polling place thinking, God, who was I supposed to vote for? So that's why Democrats have won every contested election for state Supreme Court since COVID. But the thing is, people standing in line, standing on their feet as they fill out the ballot, a long ballot. They make quick, arbitrary choices a lot of the time, and votes are affected by irrelevant things like the order names are listed on the ballot. Which I can demonstrate to you if you're interested. And this is in Washtenaw County, one of the most highly educated constituencies in the nation. Now, I'm guessing that in this context, asking them to rank candidates would not improve things. Most offices are now elected in even year November general elections. School boards, community college trustees, library board, all of those are on the general election ballot now. Mayors and city councils are increasingly going to even years, as Ann Arbor has done. As a result, when we lay out and design the ballot for those elections, it's always a challenge to fit all the offices and candidates and proposals within two sides of an 8.5 by 20-inch piece of paper. General election ballots in this county alone, come to about 3,000 pounds of paper, a ton and a half of paper, just for the ballots, for the one-page ballot for the whole county. If stuff for the ballot overflows onto another page, that doubles the quantity of paper required because and the printing, because ballots, regardless of if the side is blank, it has to be printed on both sides to have the timing marks be read by the tabulator. At polling places, an election with 2 ballots per voter multiplies the chances for errors and delays. The number of voters and ballots and applications to vote and ballot stubs all need to match. If they don't, they likely have a time-consuming problem figuring out what happened. You're wondering, why isn't precinct 3 reporting yet? Well, because of something like that. On election day, voters mark their choices and feed the ballot into the tabulator. At the end of the voting day, each precinct posts the results tape listing how many votes were cast for each candidate or issue. Tabulating the vote in each precinct is a huge security improvement from the old punch card system, where the ballots were all taken to a counting center and fed into one computer under the control of one programmer. And there was always some suspicion about how those votes were being handled and counted at those counting centers. And at least in one Kent County case in 1994, I can tell you all about it, that suspicion was more than justified. Now, I'm opposed to the Rank My Vote proposal, mostly on practical grounds for Michigan. But let me start by pointing out a couple of things I like a lot about the proposal and rebut a couple of commonly repeated unfair criticisms. Just to be clear about this, the amendment guarantees that all voting in Michigan be by paper ballot. That's already what we do, but I'd be really glad to see that in the Constitution, because paper ballots are the optimal way to go. The proposal also requires that the primary be moved from August to May or June. It's pretty much unanimous in the election world that we clerks badly need more time to get ballots ready for November. Back in 2022, the Promote the Vote proposal required hand count audits after every statewide election, including primaries. But since that can't be done for primaries in the current schedule, we all violated the state constitution last year. So I want to express my deep appreciation to the Rank My Vote for including those provisions. And so if this is adopted, I'll be very happy to see that part of it. Now, some critics are pointing out that the person who gets the most votes in IRV, in the first round, sometimes doesn't win. Well, that's the point. Sometimes if you're only going to take the top finisher on the first round, that's with respect to the plurality system. They also say, and I see this in the websites, and I've been looking at all the different websites and so forth, but the rhetoric about this, they say that exhausted ballots are trash. That's a loaded term, a bullshit indicator. A voter can choose not to rank all the candidates. Also, ballots in federal elections, which is to say, even your general and primary elections, are required by law to be kept for 22 months. So no ballots are being trashed. Now, as Ryan already mentioned, in April 1975, Ann Arbor had an IRB election for mayor, which I applauded at the time and still do. There were three parties in city politics then, Republican, Democratic, and Human Rights parties. The Democrats and the HRP together were a majority, but Republicans usually had the most votes. With IRB, the Democrat Al Wheeler was elected. Soon after that, the Republicans got the IRB amendment repealed. But this was a city election. This is when the city elections in those days were held in April of every year. There was nothing on the ballot but mayor and council. There were only three candidates for mayor. Everybody on all sides understood exactly what was happening. And the ballots were quickly counted by hand. The results vindicated majority rule in Ann Arbor, exactly as intended and expected. If we have statewide IRB for governor and other offices as proposed, the circumstances will be very different. There can be no set limit on the number of candidates, especially in primaries. With the vote widely scattered among a lot of candidates, the situation could be highly uncertain. With IRB, the outcome is very sensitive. The order that candidates are eliminated. I'm sorry, I got more to say here. If the amendment is adopted, we will have the largest IRB election in American history. You think of it, in 2024, Michigan cast more than 5.6 million ballots. That's almost 7 times the number of ballots in Maine, or 16 times as many as Alaska. Now, New York City is a big place, but uses IRB only in the primary. And Michigan cast more than 5 times as many votes as were cast in the New York City primary. And I should say, New York City has historically had extraordinarily low voter turnout for cultural reasons because of the politics of New York State. I've looked over IRB ballots from other states, and I have a copy of one of them on the table here. Maine and Alaska ballots have one side for ranked choice and the other side for plurality elections. And they elect only a tiny fraction as many offices as we do. So it's easy to fit it all in one ballot. Seems to work well. Good for them. But here in Michigan, sorry. So here in Michigan, we have the precincts would post their, I'm sorry. We would be forced to use a multi-page ballot and all the hassles that entails and the paper consumption that would require. The amendment provides that ranking isn't necessary when there are 2 or fewer candidates. I mean, if you only have 2 people running, you don't really need to rank them, right? But registered write-ins have to be included. So we have to have ballots 45 days before the election, but write-ins can show up only 10 days before the election. So basically every position, every one of these positions we have to treat it as a ranked choice. But you can't really say, oh no, this one doesn't need ranked choice. They all will have it. So I wish that the write-ins had been left out.
Let
me just quickly finish up. So posting there's when you have a lot of candidates, you have a lot of possible combinations of who ranked what candidate, and with 6 candidates, that's 1,956 cells of data, and you would not be able to report those in the precinct. They would basically, the precinct would only report the first choice votes. So, let's say we had an extremely close election. If Donald Trump had won Michigan by the same number of votes that, as this election in Florida in 2000, like 500 votes in the entire state of 5 million votes, we want to have a hand count recount, as we did somewhat in 2016. But a recount under IRB is very complicated and much slower than a recount in traditional election. I can go over the reasons for that and how that, but.
Well, maybe someone will ask me a question.
Okay,
Maybe.
but also with ranked choice voting, the chance of having a close election is multiplied because every time you eliminate a candidate, that is an opportunity for a close vote, and which order you eliminate candidates in can affect the outcome.
Thank you so much, Larry. That was actually very informative. Perfect. So, there's a lot of information. I'm sure the members of the audience who have questions when it comes to RCV. And I guess I'll start with Eli since his hand shot up like a Lyndon bill.
First hand up, first get called. Neither of you discussed the implications of ranked choice voting for the structure and place of parties. So there's an implication that it will encourage the formation of multiple parties, not just two. Just for a minute, what is the effect of ranked choice voting on the role of parties playing elections?
And there's a mic on the table, but
Is this on? Oh, cool. Ranked choice voting is a voting system. So there's two things I'll say. One, our amendment applies to primary and general elections. So it makes primaries more competitive, as well as allow for the primary outcome candidate who wins the primary, to be supported by the majority of party voters. The main advantage to ranked choice voting is allowing for there to be more choices, more than two choices, because voters are punished when there's more than two choices under the plurality system. But that applies to the current party primaries as well as the general election. So it's a system that brings voters forward primarily, allows voters more power and expression.
Now, I think that there are people who think that ranked choice voting would somehow break up the two-party system. That is a fantasy. I mean, the reason why we have a two-party system, it's game theory. We have a single elected president who gets control over the entire executive branch for 4 years by one party. And so politics is organized on that, that every faction has a huge incentive to be part of a 51% coalition to take that prize. So if we want to have multiple parties, a stable multi-party system, you need a parliamentary system to do that. In countries that have that kind of politics, they have, in fact, most other democracies have parliamentary system. But I don't think that, don't think that's likely to happen here.
Perfect.
My name is Larry Works. I represent Ward 4 in Ann Arbor. Just a couple of things. One, I really appreciate the perspective of trying to get more participation, especially from the younger folks. I have adult children, and both of which, unless I'm in town with them, avoid the voting booth. They may agree aggressively with me, but they are very frustrated. The other thing is this is being recorded, and so it will be on our website. I encourage you to pass that around to other folks. I'm going to run the mic. He's going to call. They should go home with the names. Okay.
Okay, first row right here.
My understanding is that ranked voting is to get more people involved in running for election. Is that what you said? Is that the purpose? And if so, wouldn't term limits be a better choice? Because you will have more. If you're thinking about the same people running all the time, if we had term limits, more people would say, I got a chance now, because people would vote for people that they know, and I've been in races where that has been done. But with term limits, if we can term limit the president, we can term limit everybody else.
To your first part, absolutely. I mean, ranked choice voting is about pulling voters in, increasing turnout, and candidates as well, because it eliminates the spoiler problem, eliminates the wasted vote problem, allows for voters to more freely express their preferences, and therefore voters can be more enthusiastic about voting, and candidates can be more enthusiastic about coming forward without the spoiler problem. I'm here advocating for ranked choice voting, so I don't have a particular comment on term limits. That is an awesome democratic discussion. That's outside of rank my vote particular stuff. I don't know if Larry has anything.
I'm opposed to term limits, but that's, as you say, a different discussion. The thing about the supply of candidates, we had for many years a drastic shortage of candidates at all levels, both parties, all areas. It basically started in the late 70s following Watergate, that people were repelled from politics and didn't want to get involved in it. And so we had, in a lot of places, the same people running again because nobody was there to take their spot. The city council in Ann Arbor got older and older because people were served, normally it used to be they would serve 2 terms and be done and someone else would come along. And you'd have the parties, both parties, telling people, we need you to run again. We don't have anyone to take your place. And so the Almanac of American Politics back at that point said, the reason why 99% of congressional incumbents are reelected is nobody's running against them seriously. No one is mounting campaign. When good candidates were a shortage, they knew they were valuable. They didn't want to run against incumbents, in something that might be hopeless. Back when I started, there were crowds of ambitious people running for almost any office. That has faded away. Now, over time, the way that people get involved in politics, seriously involved, is almost through presidential campaigns. I came into the McGovern campaign, right? Some of you all came in through Howard Dean or Barack Obama or whatever. You get involved in the presidential campaign, then you become aware that there's a lot else going on in politics. And so I'm very, very encouraged to see the upsurge. Again, all areas, all levels of both parties, there's an upsurge of people being interested to put themselves out there and run for office. And if you're thinking about that, I would encourage you to. But I'd be happy to sit down and talk with you if you want to know about the way that all works and how that would affect you. But I don't think that having ranked choice or not having ranked choice or whatever is much of a factor compared to the whole culture, driving either repelling people from politics or attracting people into politics.
Perfect, thank you, Lenny. I'll take one more question, the last question.
Come on. Who has Dirk?
No.
Oh, no, Dirk talks all the time.
That's how it said.
Love Dirk.
Yes.
Love Dirk.
Hello, my name's Dan. I'm from Ann Arbor. And I have a comment and a question for Mr. Cassimum. I'm wondering how, as a Democratic elected official, that you could not be more in favor of this pro-voter, pro-democracy proposal, arguing that it wastes too much paper. And at the same time, you talk about approval voting, which is an unproved method, unlike this current proposal and its version of ranked choice voting. Yes, there are different ones. That's really irrelevant to a pro-voter, pro-democracy proposal that would bring in more voters and give us more choice.
Okay, that's a question.
The question I have is,
It's a question.
when you spoke out about ranked choice voting, you didn't mention all the other ballot initiatives and just sort of basically tacitly approve of them, which almost puts you on the same side as Donald Trump. I'm wondering how you can explain it.
That's enough of that's a question.
I'm sorry. The thing is, yes, I'm a Democratic elected official, and I have advocated for liberal causes all my life, and for greater inclusion of voters and voter empowerment and so forth all along. This particular thing, I have issues with the practicality of what we're going to do involving recounts and so forth, and that. Approval voting is used in Fargo, North Dakota. I know that's not very much experience, but that's, but it is given our situation here in Michigan with our gigantic ballot and so many offices. I think that approval voting, which would apply from top to bottom, every office, you could vote for whoever you wanted. If you wanted to vote for the Democrat and the Green, then you would be giving tangible support to both candidates. If you wanted to vote for, let's say, everybody running for school board except the one guy you hate, you could do that. So it doesn't give you an opportunity to rank it. If you have a big choice hierarchy, you can have, it's not going to serve you well, but it's something that we can do with our current ballots with basically no cost, and it wouldn't require a constitutional amendment. You could do it through legislation or through a initiated legislation, which would take 100,000 fewer signatures than a constitutional amendment. So I could absolutely defend my support for approval voting. Like I said, and I know that there have been issues with ranked choice. It hasn't been all roses everywhere. There have been issues in Burlington, for example, after they had an election where the outcome was different than what maybe it should have been. They repealed ranked choice, and they later on reinstated it years later. But there have also been issues with counting ballots and recounts and so forth. The Oakland, California School Board, they certified the election, swore someone, and it turned out nope, he didn't win, somebody else won. So it's complicated to administer, and I don't think that it's right for Michigan on general elections at this time.
Well, thank you.
Sorry, your Debbie came back. Our congresswoman takes precedence. No offense, but hopefully
Hopefully we'll have time. So you guys, I hope you're gonna stay. You gonna stay?
I'm gonna stay.
Okay, good. I hope you'll stay. Thank you to both of you. Incredibly interesting. May I speak? I'll just say that Larry didn't speak to all the other ballot proposals because he's not supposed to. I mean, that's not his job. He's here to speak to ranked choice voting, so just that. All right, our congresswoman is here. Congresswoman Dibble, come on up. And yes, thank you. Good God, I don't know how to do that. While this is making the way up, I also want to thank Lyndon Dibble, a recent Pioneer High School graduate, for putting this panel together. Yeah, for recommending it and making it happen. So thank you, Lyndon.
Thank you.
Not up here, no, but I would like you to stay in the room because I want Dirk to get his question.
Good morning. For my fourth speech this morning. But it's our fourth event. I do try to always get to Washtenaw down. I don't even know what to say to you about where we're at. It is day 32 of a government shutdown. Mike Johnson, Speaker of the House, again yesterday said the House would not be in session next week. It will be the 6th week that the United States House of Representatives has not been in Washington, having any ability to have bipartisan discussions to reopen the government. And, people are hurting. People in our community are hurting, and I can talk about that in a minute. But it's getting real very quickly for everyday people, working men and women. Today, November 1st, is the day that people who need a helping hand on SNAP normally get their EBT cards. And as we all know, the president decided to weaponize hunger in this country. And we created a contingency fund in the Congress. I'm watching say the lawyer who knows. It is a legal fund established so we would never do what we are doing today. It was appealed in the courts very quickly by 23 states, AGs. Michigan was one of them. Yesterday, 2 different courts ruled that the government needs to, that the funds are there and they need to provide one of the, maybe Sam can explain the ambiguity of the second court. I mean, they're like giving it to Monday to explain, to say they're going to deliver the funds. Last night, if you read the president's social media, which I don't because I don't want to be a follower, but then you read it in the news next, he said he would be delighted to feed people if the courts lay out that he can, which is total bullshit. The courts did yesterday, and he's trying to play. We only have this crisis because President Trump himself decided that he would weaponize hunger in this country, period. But there are a lot of other programs that are starting to, Head Start. There are programs that may not continue. And I want to say something. I've talked to the governor multiple times. The state yesterday the state does not have the money to make up for the funds that the federal government is not going to be bringing. I've talked to all of in the 6th district, not only do we have food gatherers, but I've got Wayne County and Oakland as well. So food gatherers, gleaners, but Forgotten Harvest. But then there are a lot of other food banks there. I've talked to all the nonprofit community. Quite frankly, the nonprofit community, philanthropy does not have the money to make up for what the federal government has, and you pay taxes for, just for the record. But I think everybody's trying to come together as a community. We put out lists of where you can go. I think we all need to be super sensitive and aware that there may be people that need a helping hand. And some people that can't. I did the Brian Fuller show, and he made me mad. There are people that are working 2 or 3 jobs in this country. I know a lot of them. A lot of them are caretakers, and they're still living below the poverty line. Mm-hmm. There are people that just need a helping hand. For those that say they're Christian, which this president does, the Bible teaches us, for when I was hungry, you gave me to eat. So we just say, hey, guys, don't. So anyway, I'm pretty upset about the SNAP, in case you can't tell. But it's not theory anymore. The president, why do we have to do healthcare? We've got time. It doesn't expire to December 31st. And don't forget, the 4th of July, we had to go back to Washington because those billionaires' tax cuts had to be made permanent, and they don't expire to December 31st. And they for sure shit didn't need those tax cuts to be made permanent to begin with. So we had to do that by the 4th of July. And now the exchange is open today. People have been getting their health care premiums. You can go to the exchange and see what your health care premiums are going to cost people. And even if you're not on the exchange, here's the reality. Your premiums have gone sky high. Last week, I went to Indivisible in Saline, and a woman walked up to me and said, "You were telling the truth." Yeah, I was. I mean, people, when you're sick in this country, you should be able to go to the doctor when you need to go to the doctor, be able to get the medicine you need and the treatment you need. And I've been getting story after story now. I mean, there's one woman, there's several stories. One woman wrote me and said, "I got my premium. You're right. I'm not getting health insurance next year. I hope I don't die." That was her note to me. Another woman wrote me as because she's pregnant with her first child. She and her husband have separate health insurance on the exchange. She said, "We can't afford it with the new premium. So my husband's going to not get insurance and hope he doesn't get sick. And we're going to get insurance for myself and my child." And the stories are going to go on. At some point, you got to draw the line in the sand and to say what's worth fighting for. And I think the health care of every American is worth fighting for. But I also want to have bipartisan discussions, get the government open again, and help take care of the people that need to be taken care of. So. I have to be a little careful because I'm now worried about, the TSA has been told that they meet with us, there could be serious retribution. I've met with all of the presidents of the different government unions, the national presidents, and they say if someone says something publicly, they will get ripped in 24 hours. I've been working with the airport. Chad runs the airport, and they have now for the TSA workers, the airport commission itself is giving a food voucher each day to TSA workers that are working. But when I try to, you try not to be seen, but I've talked to some of the TS workers who are down. I'm not going to lie to you. And one mother told me about 2 weeks ago, I had to choose between gas in my car and milk for my child. It's not working. So I was trying to work with Delta about getting a food bank. This is how great this government is. I mean, we're all part of the government. But Tingstad told its employees that if they took money or took food from a food bank that we were trying to set up at the airport, it would be a gift and an ethics violation. So the goddamn president can take a plane from Qatar, but we can't help our neighbors when they need a helping hand. I don't know. I guess I'm worked up this morning. Anyway, that's where we are. I don't know what's going to happen. I think nothing will happen until the elections are over on Tuesday. I do think if anybody's got time, there are ways you can help in both Virginia and New Jersey on the phones. Those races are tighter than they should be. And we need to make sure Democrats win in those seats and we send a message about what people will and will not stand for. I know people are tired, you're worn down, you don't know if what you do makes a difference. The Constitution says we the people. It isn't one person that's going to save us. It is we the people standing up, speaking out, not letting him get away with it that is going to win. And sadly, the issue that I've heard the most about has been the tearing down of the East Wing. Now, I wish people cared more about healthcare. I wish they talked more about SNAP. People do. But maybe the picture of the East Wing being torn down without going through anything is a symbol of what's happening to our country. But I'm just going to tell you, we can't get tired. We can't stop fighting. Dirk tries to keep me from yelling at people and succeeds someday. Okay, he was my savior. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Sure. No question.
Thank you for all your hard work.
Yeah.
He saved me one day when someone wanted to tick me off. Unfairly, I might add. But I was going to tell her what I thought, so I started to. And Dirk thought maybe I shouldn't do that.
Thank you so much, Debbie, for coming and speaking with us. We know that people in Republican districts and Republican voters are actually the most likely to benefit from things like SNAP. And as terrible as this is, and that the first priority is getting people food. How can we let people know that our federal taxes go towards real services that really support people, and that Republican voters need to stop fighting against government services because they're the ones that benefit from them? How do we get that message out and also get people food at the same time?
So we got to build the ecosystem. I mean, everybody's welcome to call my office, though. I think I'm not shy or retarding about where I stand. And it's good to be able to say, hey, I got this many calls, or I'm not getting calls to reopen it. Please, I shouldn't say this. I'm getting far more calls about keeping the government to stand our ground. So I'm going to say that right. Yeah, I don't want to be friggin'. But, you got to find your friends, or like if you have a summer home in a different zip code that has used that address when you call the office. We're all members of groups that have members that are in. People have to really communicate and make sure those calls are going, those letters are going. I understand that Speaker Johnson's call last week was very contentious, and that his members are beginning to feel very offensive about we haven't been to work in 5 weeks. I don't like saying vacation because it would imply that people like me are on vacation and I'm working my butt off. But we need to just keep educating people. We need to be talking about it. You can write op-eds. You're not traditional op-ed writers. You can do that. Get your churches to do things, get your schools to do things. We can't give up. What he wants to do is make people so tired and so worn down is think that nobody can make a difference and that everybody gets docile. We can't get docile. No Kings was great. And they were, I think he wanted to cause trouble. And I'm not going to lie to you. I was scared about No Kings. Coming after Charlie Kirk and the horrific things that were being said on social media and telling people to go after people that, I mean, there were some really, really violent, not okay things. The no kinks across the country were great. The no kinks in the 6th district were fabulous. We had good turnouts. People came together as community. There wasn't anger, or we were community fighting for what was right. And that's what we got to keep doing. Community fighting for what's right.
You have a question?
And then she got to get back to okay.
Cheryl?
Larry, right here. Larry, front row.
Good morning. I would like to know, when he, when he invokes this insurrection act, then what do we do then?
We're going to challenge it in the courts. We know that, quite frankly, there's reason to believe he was going to, that there were people that were going to try to cause problems at No Kings. We're watching in Chicago. You know, I'll be very blunt with you. I didn't used to be a Governor Pritzker fan. I don't, you know, he's done a fabulous job.
Yeah.
And he has. I mean, I'm very impressed with what he's doing. And Trump is trying to create chaos in Chicago so he can invoke it. And we got to fight back. We stayed, people, there were incidences. We were lucky. I didn't really see people, I mean, I may have missed it, but Jason Morgan was in South Lyon and the mega people were driving through and trying to, Novi had some people over there. We didn't react. We didn't let them bite. And we just, we got to have, I mean, our governor, we got to make sure every governor is prepared and strong, and every mayor is going to be prepared and strong. People like me will be prepared and strong. We'll take it to the courts, and we just, you know, at some point, we the people just can't let them win. And I do believe in my heart and soul that the military is, and you know, I'm gonna probably get in trouble with it, but like he tried some of this 4 years ago, and the military wouldn't let him do some of the things he wanted to do. I don't know what Sam thinks, but I still think we have people in the military that love our country.
And veterans.
And veterans, right? David Long, Sam?
I'm here.
Sam worries like I do, but I gotta believe. He wants to wear us down. We can't let him wear us down.
Over here.
Good morning. Thanks for everything you do, and do stay feisty, don't change. My question,
It's too late.
my question's about the CR. My understanding is that the CR will expire the 21st of November. If it does, if that's true, what's the reason for keeping the government shut down at that time?
Okay, we don't have a CR. So that's the CR that the House passed, Republicans not, would have expired on November 21st. But the Senate hasn't passed a CR, so there's no operating authorization for the government, and that's why the government shut down.
All right. One more. We have one more question. If not, we have Todd Ryan coming right now, right? Is Todd here?
Hi.
Hi, Todd. Oh, yeah. You bring in a question?
Yeah.
I didn't really formulate this question, but when you said the line in the sand, I think that Democrats should move the line right now. As Sam pointed out to a bunch of us at another event, government's been shut down since January 20th.
Yeah.
Like, it's not operating, and like, just, yes, it's wonderful to demand that the healthcare subsidies be enacted, but all this unconstitutional bullshit that's happening, I think that the Democrats should demand everything.
We got to do it effectively, and I don't disagree with you, but our people need to be fed. Head Start is starting to close. There are programs that you all take for granted that we've got to make. I mean, our Head Start's the only chance that a lot of kids have. Meals in schools, the only food that some people get. You want Social Security to start not to be paid? I mean, there are programs that we take. We have to fight, and we have to fight effectively. We have to fight effectively and not hurt everyday working Americans. So are you saying we should keep the government shut?
Effective.
I'm asking Sam that.
I think if they will accept the demands that are in, what was in the Murray bill in the Senate, then open the government. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, sorry. I mean, so I think the Democrats in Congress have taken exactly the right position here. I think you've been doing a great job on that. We are living in a world where the Trump administration is going to continue to violate the Constitution, and we need people to stand up. And I'm really pleased with what you've been doing in this show.
Would be to put you on the spot, but I think sometimes you don't know the people that will. So we got to put lines in the sand. That's where we're taking the stand now and what he's doing.
If you push that line, then you can step back and give it back to, you know what I'm saying?
I think you got to be smart and strategic.
Yeah, right.
And I don't want our children not fed. I don't want our Head Start programs are closing this week. Programs we all care about, but we got to be strategic and not quiet. So don't just 3 chairs for Deputy Tingstad.
Thank you so much to our Congresswoman. He is an absolutely incredible leader. We're so, and again, that's on us. I'm just saying, we elected Deputy Tingstad, so that's great. We have Todd Ryan, who's going to come up in a second, and I want to mention that we are addressing veterans issues and the military issues later this morning with the chair of the MDP Veterans Caucus. So we are actually going to be talking about that. I also want to say the 2 things. One, that these people wrap themselves in Christianity while they're actively hurting people, actively killing children overseas, letting children starve to death overseas. I mean, so Christian nationalism, a week from tomorrow, in the main room here, big room, not the sanctuary. Anyway, we're going to be talking about Christian nationalism and the threat to democracy of Christian nationalism and how we individually address it. I also want just one quick, no kings. I actually was on an Indivisible call, I think, where somebody said the biggest no kings, the most effective, the most important no kings protest is November 4th. For these elections, right? We have got to, everywhere across this country, there are elections on November 4th. That's the biggest and most important one. We have in our last newsletter a bunch of ways to move those needles from the MDP, really great all over. So if you can't find our newsletter, I'm actually right now asking Charles Roth, I hope you're on, let's get that on amivoter.org. All right, amivoter.org. All right, Todd. Eli is going to introduce Todd.
Come on up. First of all, I want to thank Nathan Coulter, who's not here, but he's the one who originally requested that we have here a talk from the head of the Economic Justice Unit at Washtenaw County Prosecutor's Office. And that further ado, I turn it over to the head of the office.
Good morning, everyone. I don't know how to follow Congresswoman Dingell on this fine morning. Gonna kind of take the temperature down a little bit probably in the room. I'm a little fired up myself now. So I'm gonna talk about money and how people can get jammed up on money and then what we can do about it.
Can you speak directly into the microphone?
I can try. Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay. So just a time check. About 15 minutes, is that what we're looking for?
I'd say 15 minutes for your talk, 5 minutes for questions.
Okay, cool. So yes, I am actually the Economic Justice Unit, sitting at one person in Washtenaw County. I work with the Washtenaw County Prosecutor's Office. So just a brief introduction. I live in Ann Arbor, father of 2. We've got a 3rd on the way in December that we're really excited about. And our child actually goes to preschool right here at community daycare, and they play in this fine playground right there. So that's kind of by way of introduction that this is local government, right? Local government is people, all government is people, but local government is actually here and responsive and can talk to things. So my job with Washtenaw County is to try to shift power imbalances because power imbalances are being exploited to take advantage of people and take their money. And so I think that matters. And I think that's something that there's a big gap in the enforcement landscape. And there's a lot of people that are being taken advantage of. And so that the kind of status quo is economic injustice, and we are trying to promote economic justice. And so I'll get into some examples of what I mean by that. We work on workers' rights and how people get paid in the workplace. We work on consumer protection and how people pay money to businesses. Consumer protection is really broad. It can include housing rights, including tenants' rights, and how people are living in dangerous housing, and their landlord is profiting from dangerous housing, poisoning children. And so consumer protection does take on a really broad mantle. And so the basic concept is local government does have legal authority to enforce the laws on behalf of the public. And so is there a gap in the existing enforcement landscape such that it would be helpful for local government to take a role? And so I came in to this role 4 years ago to build it up. The elected county prosecutor, Ellie Savick, created this position shortly after he took office in 2020, and I came in 2021 he might have taken office in January 21 now I think about it. Anyway, he was elected. And so my role was to come up and to build this kind of new enforcement model for civil laws primarily. There are criminal laws that apply in this context, but my focus was to build new work within the county prosecutor's office and to kind of deploy latent legal authority that most every county prosecutor has not used. And so the Consumer Protection Act, for example, is generally subject to public enforcement by the state attorney general. But every local prosecutor has the same authority to enforce the Consumer Protection Act as the state attorney general. There's a little provision tucked away in there. As far as we know, and as far as the state attorney general, people who've worked on it for decades, no local prosecutor has enforced this, maybe in the 70s when it was first passed. And so that's the kind of question is there's a lot of latent legal authority that we have to take action. And so what can we do on the local level that's a value add? And so on the consumer protection standpoint, on the public side, there's generally speaking, federal enforcement that's potentially available from the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau and the Federal Trade Commission. Those are two large federal government agencies that, building off what the theme was of the earlier conversation, are not active right now in terms of protecting people. And the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau in particular is largely put on the shelf right now, just in terms of like the actual state of enforcement. They're actually taking away consent agreements, which were agreements between the federal agency and a business, that the business would do X, Y, and Z or pay money or whatever. And so they're actively kind of unringing the bell on a lot of enforcement measures that have been in place and have been protecting people in this country. And then the state attorney general has the authority to do the consumer protection as well. And that has varied over the decades, depending on who's in office and how much of a priority that was for the people in office. And so the staffing levels, just in terms of the number of attorneys working on consumer protection issues, has varied greatly at the state level. And so Washtenaw County has the ability to take a stand and say, we are going to staff this up and we're going to have at least one person, which is me, who will do this, and that's your day job. That's what you go to work to do. And so we're the only county in the state that has an economic justice unit to do this work. And so we've got kind of the power imbalances that are built into the law. And what I mean by that are the laws are generally created by people in power. They're always created by people in power. And then they can advantage people with money. And so there's a special criminal law called embezzlement, which is when a worker steals from a business. But there's not a special law on the books for when a business steals from a worker, right? So we've got this special kind of imbalance that's baked into some of our laws. I believe there's a criminal law that protects ornamental shrubs specifically, but there's not a criminal law that specifically protects workers. There's lots of laws that could apply in that context and maybe should apply in that context. And so you can argue that, you know, in general, there should be less people in jail in the country. You could argue that there should be more enforcement of criminal laws against businesses. Perhaps you'd agree with that, perhaps you wouldn't. And so the general concept of when a business breaks the law, there could be laws that apply to those businesses. For example, there's a general law, extortion. And so extortion is when you have a serious threat of harm for financial advantage. And perhaps you can think of an example of a business that could threaten a worker with serious harm, such as deportation, for financial advantage, for working for less money. Right? And so it's kind of thinking about the existing laws that are in the books and whether they could or should apply in non-traditional contexts. And then on the civil side, we've got the existing laws that we can apply as well. And we work in partnership with other government entities and organizations because very limited resources, right? Very limited time. And so we can leverage our relationships with, for example, the state agency that enforces wage and hour laws that you have to get paid right. And so we've got good, solid communication flows and relationships. And so people reach out directly and we can provide legal information and referrals, as well as take actions against that business. We can't take action directly for individuals because we represent the government. We can't represent the individual, but we can take action against the businesses and we can refer them to partner organizations like legal services and other organizations that can help directly. So a concrete example of that is we're currently partnering with the city of Ypsilanti to sue an apartment complex in Ypsilanti for dangerous housing conditions that are threatening the health and safety of hundreds of people. And so we can take that public enforcement action, and we have filed a lawsuit. It's been really hotly contested in active litigation. I won't talk too much about it, but we filed a lawsuit based on public nuisance, which is a really broad legal authority to take action to protect the public against something that's dangerous, and consumer protection, because people are getting charged money for living in a house that was condemned. And so that is a kind of our legal authority that we're asserting. We've partnered with legal services on that, and they have directly represented the tenants. So they can represent tenants against an eviction. They can represent the interests of the tenants directly. And so we've all got kind of our part to play and our role to play, but we can work in collaboration to try to do it better. So that's kind of a little bit, just really broad strokes overviews. I can give maybe a couple other concrete examples of the type of work and things that we're interested in. Y'all know about tow trucks? Y'all ever get your car towed?
Oh, yeah.
So that's an example of kind of a built-in power imbalance between a business and a consumer, where they're taking your car without your permission. I'm talking about non-consensual tows. Sorry, I should clarify. This isn't you breaking down on the side of the road, calling the tow truck for help. This is you park somewhere and your car disappears, and you're like, "Where's my car?" And so that's a built-in power imbalance that can be exploited. It doesn't have to be. There could be big tow truck companies that are doing it right. And they're both public tows, like from the side of the road, and private tows from an apartment complex or whatever. And so that's a concrete example where it's really hard to have public enforcement of that without actually somebody doing consumer protection laws. And then private enforcement, the law has narrowed private enforcement on that so that there's a very limited cause of action, meaning there's very limited recourse for that person to actually contest whether it was a good tow or a bad tow in court. You got to pay the entire price of the tow on the front end in order to get your day in court. And then if you do that, then best case scenario, it was a bum tow, you get your car back, but no attorney is going to represent you for a $500 tow unless you pay them money. And so it's one of those, it doesn't make sense. It's not economically rational for you to hire an attorney and pay them $1,000 to fight your $500 tow. And then there's issues with the private enforcement landscape on that. And so that's subject to public enforcement and something that we can actually look into and do something about. We've seen tows that cost over $10,000 for a particular tow, right? So that's something that more common is $700, but people are charging $100 a day for storage for a car that's in a yard in Ypsilanti. It's not in a high rise in downtown New York. which I think is less than $100 a day. I don't know. When I parked in Chicago, it's like $60 a day. I don't know. Right. Okay. So that's just kind of another concrete example where there's these like hidden areas where there's a lot of problems going on, and we can look into it and try to do something about it. And then there's non-hidden areas where there's just vast power imbalances. What comes to mind most on that is landlord-tenant law. And so that's something that is very much public, but it's something that's really hard for the individual tenants to actually mobilize and do something about. And so with the Economic Justice Unit, people can reach out to us directly. It starts a civil investigation, not a criminal investigation. That's a very important note. Doesn't create a police report or anything like that. And what it does is it goes to me. And so that's part of that local government being responsive. And so I actually look at everything that comes in. I scratch my head and think about, is there something that we can do? And regardless of whether there is or not, we try to provide legal information and resources. And then we also collaborate with those partner organizations to work with people and identify issues that way. And so that's my job. That's what I do. And that's something that other local prosecutors could do across the state. It's a resource consideration. Washtenaw County has funded this and made it a permanent, sustainable position in our county for one person. But it's something that I think there's a lot of work to be done, and that there's a lot of work that could be done in this area.
Thank you so much.
You have time for one, max 2 questions. Any questions from the audience? Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just curious, what areas does your office generally focus in? I know you gave examples of like food trucks and housing, but does it expand into areas like insurance agents, auto dealerships, consumer finance, like funding dealerships, student loans? Because a lot of those financial transactions happen within the county of Washtenaw. Do you have some influence over some of those day-to-day transactions that a lot of people, from my understanding, can be abused?
Yeah, and so that's something that I definitely pay attention and try to listen. And some of the value add there can be connecting people, for example, to a state agency called the Department of Insurance and Financial Services, DIFS, which a lot of people don't know that it exists, but there's a state agency that takes complaints about insurance and insurance-related things. But we also pay attention to try to identify the trends so that we can lift that up to our partner organizations and tell people you need to focus on this. And then there's other things that we can kind of listen and pay attention to and see if there is a value add for us to do something about. Just a brief example is something called a TRAP, a training repayment agreement program, something like that, where your employer actually says, you have to pay us money if you leave because we trained you to be a dog groomer, right? So you have to pay us $5,000 if you leave in the first year of your work. You have to pay us $2,500 if you leave in the second year. And so there's an overlap there between that's potentially subject to enforcement because it's an educational product. So it's subject to educational regulation and enforcement. A consumer product because the worker is a consumer of those educational services or worker rights. And so our kind of competitive advantage is looking at things holistically and trying to connect people with those potentially 3 different entities, and then also paying attention and seeing if we can take action, because a lot of employers are doing they're called class action waivers and arbitration agreements. And so that means you can't band together and bring a class of people to do the lawsuit, and you can't do it in court. You have to do it in a private justice system that's essentially invisible to people as opposed to public, like court. And so that's another advantage to public enforcement, is when you have those class waivers, which the pet grooming situation did have a class waiver. And so it was booted from federal court in California to private arbitration, and then trying to move that forward and trying to see if that agreement that came out of arbitration is actually implemented in Michigan. And so there's definitely a lot of issues that are very broad, and just from a resource standpoint, I'm not going to be able to do too much, but we are paying attention and trying to connect the dots on it.
Thank you so much, Todd. I want to say, well, I have a question. You said just reach out to us. How do they do that? How do we reach you?
Yep. So there's a website. We've got a form that you can fill out. So it's the prosecutor's website, Economic Justice Unit. You can fill the form out. You can email economicjustice@washtenaw.org.
There you go. economicjustice@washtenaw.org. That's great. Thanks.
And I have a phone, and people have actually sent things in the mail. Yep.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Fax. You can fax.
So you can email them to find out how to fax them. Okay. I want to point out a couple things. One, and first of all, Larry just mentioned it's game day and the towing's going to be active. So yeah, in Ann Arbor. So be careful. I just love this. Like, here's David. I mean, we're fighting Goliath, right? It's always the people with money who have all the power. So this is fantastic. And thank you to our democratic county prosecutor and the county board of commissioners that authorized this expenditure on our behalf. I thought it was interesting. The only one in the state. That's really incredible. All right. Theron, Tingstad, and the co-chair of the MDP Veterans Caucus will be speaking with us, working with us at the January Washtenaw Alliance 2026 potluck, which will be here on January, I forget, whatever, the second Sunday in January. So we'll be really delving into this issue and what civilians, people who've never served, can do to support the veterans and members of the military who are pro-democracy, I'll put it that way.
And don't forget, Teresa, you can also support us by coming, you can also support us.
Dude, yeah, see that.
By coming to our party that we're having on November 15th, Veterans Day party. It's
in the newsletter.
Newsletter, so
Right.
feel free.
Yeah.
And there's also a concert for peace on Tuesday, November 11th at the Arc, which is, I didn't even know about this. This is cool. Thank you.
Thanks, Larry.
You're sneaky about that.
Thank you so much, Theron. Thank you so much. All right. You heard Debbie say that she gets more calls and emails in support of holding firm on the shutdown. We need to all continually tell our reps that we like what they're doing. Do keep that up. So amivoter.org. You don't have to how do I get them again? Like, do I have to look it up on the website or whatever? amivoter.org is in the palm of your hand. Put in your street address, find how to contact your people, and write to Debbie and write to both of our senators and say, thank you and hold firm. We really appreciate what you're doing for our government. I want to thank Eli Nathans and Annie Somerville for putting together an incredible program today. Thank you so much. Eli, did you want to speak? All right, quick. Yep.
I just want to point out on the December 6th meeting, the next monthly meeting, we're going to be back at the WLRC. So it's going to make it easier for most of you. And the main part of the program is a panel with the Democratic candidates for the position of Attorney General. So that's an important panel, and I do hope you'll show up. Thanks.
Thanks, Eli. Janet, you have a quick good and welfare? Yep. Anybody else have good and welfare? Yeah, okay, good. Hang on. Why come on up real quick? Can you mind?
5 seconds. Just a reminder that we have hungry people here in Washington County.
Yes.
And please bring
Yes.
to our next meeting, or go to food gatherers, go to
Yes.
Home Clinic, go to
Yes.
Meals on Wheels, donate food, donate money.
Yes.
Help the hungry people out there.
Donate food, donate money, food gatherers, Hope Clinic. We have this on our website too. Super, super important. Neighbors loving neighbors. Okay.
Hi, I'm Janet Cannon, and in addition to working with the board, I work a lot with the immigrant community. That was part of our last potluck, and we developed a guide to resources to how to help in that community. But I just wanted to communicate that over the last few weeks, you may have seen an article in MLive, sort of prefacing this. It's a big buildup in ICE activity. It's been an average of 2 or 3 detentions a day
that we know of, that the people who are monitoring and actively trying to follow ICE and help people avoid ICE. There are certainly many more. There are many families in one of the trailer parks. There's a row of 10 trailers now with no man in the household, and it's the same all through the immigrant housing communities. Just in case you're wondering what happens, if the lucky people are those who might have had a previous deportation order and are sent quickly back to their home, like my friend Milton, whose family I'm supporting right now. If you're not lucky, if you have a court date and if you've asked for asylum and your court date is sometime next year, you will be in one of the Geo Group prisons for up until that date, in which case you'll see the judge briefly and they'll say, okay, go home. You know, so we need to know how bad it is. And we also need to know the other really pertinent thing is that you may have heard that they were firing some of the ICE field officers because they weren't meeting the 3,000 detentions a day that Trump is requiring. So they replaced them with CBP, Canadian Customs and Border Patrol agents. And that is basically, there's someone reporting from the CBP is an ex-agent who's been writing a column for some time called Borderlands, which I really recommend. They have the ambition to become the national police force. And one last little item that we need to know, I'll be putting my op-ed with all of these details up somewhere and make sure that people know how to find it. But the other important thing about the CBP is that for many years, and this should have been addressed ages ago, they have defined their jurisdiction as anything within 100 miles of border. So they can stop any person, citizen, non-citizen, and ask to see your papers, ask to see your citizenship status, and they can enter the houses without warrants. And for some reason, this has been allowed for a long time. It's a now established procedure. So they're now starting to bang on doors as well, and not just. So the standard procedure here is that they have people on a list and they know where they live. One other detail, there's a woman, we have a picture of her, with a car with license plate scanners. And she goes around scanning, for example, Home Depot. She'll show up in different places where immigrants are known to gather. And she scans the license plates, and within the next day or so, they're getting picked up. They were told, my friend who was detained was told that they have scanned all of Arbor Meadows, you know, and they know exactly who they need to get to. So how do people even live with knowing that what day are they going to get? So this is our new reality, and it's going to take more than No King's Marches. It's going to take really resistance and taking risks, and those who can, you know, getting out there. So
Janet gets out there every single day. Thank you.
Teresa, may I put in a word?
Yeah.
It's worth fighting against these things. And recently we've had some victories. The ACLU got 8 people released from detention.
Yeah.
Some without even posting bond. Debbie Dingle's office has sometimes succeeded in quickly getting someone released. So just because ICE or Border Patrol snatches them doesn't mean it's not worth fighting.
Thank you so much. I want to point out also, and we have Jeff, get the mic over here, would you please? Thank you. The reason this is happening, a big reason this is happening is because of Christian nationalism and that whole ideology. So come a week from tomorrow here to address it. And then in December, we're focusing on, as we did last month, also mutual aid, part of the immigration space. And Janice Townsend is advising on that to make sure, because she has a great deal of knowledge, as does Kathy, about mutual aid going on in the county. We have to be aware that every single Republican in Congress voted to create a secret police force. A secret police force that has more funding than James. That has more funding than what, Janet? Like every it's more funding than anything else, and it's barely gotten started. It has barely gotten started. We are all in the crosshairs thanks to every Republican in Congress. So mutual aid really, you know, we really need to be thinking in creative ways about how we band together to protect each other. Yeah, Jeff.
Jeff
Last-
Alder.
Last thing.
Just two quick things. For a follow-up of No Kings this afternoon, 4:30, Dexter and Stadium. People are gonna be lining up on Stadium again to catch all the people going to the football game later today. So join if you can. Second thing, if you haven't signed a nominating petition for our wonderful Debbie Dingle, I've got some here. See me before you leave.
Okay, thank you so much. And thank you again to our program committee for an incredible job. Thank you all for being here and staying a little bit over. What? Oh, yes, thank you, Cheryl. If we can have a little bit of help restoring the room, that would be fantastic. Thank you. Thank you. Take care. Be well. Bye.